The giant crystal towers of Kethmer Prime were losing their bright glow. Commander Valtai stood at the window of the space station high above the planet. She watched as another part of the city went completely dark. The beautiful glowing buildings that had lived and breathed for thousands of years were now dying. The plague was eating them alive from the inside out. What made it worse was that their own bodies were turning against them. The Cathani were made of living crystal and silicon, not flesh and blood like some other species. But now that same crystal was becoming poison. Commander called Communications Officer Nixara from her station. Her voice sounded tired and sad through the machine that let them talk to each other. Still nothing. No one is answering our calls. Closed her eyes. 8 long months they had been sending the same message over and over again to every corner of the galaxy. They were not asking for money or weapons or territory. They were simply asking for help. Any kind of help. Their people were dying and they did not know how to stop it. What about the Zephyrian Collective? Valtai asked, even though she already knew the answer would hurt. They got our message 3 weeks ago. They sent back one word: quarantined. They have put a big invisible wall around our whole star system. No one can come in or go out. Valtai felt her crystal body flicker with sadness. The Zephyrians were old and wise. They had helped other species before when there were problems, but they were too scared of the plague to help the Cathani. And the hegemony of cores? They will not even open their communication channels to us. It is like we do not exist. The hegemony was powerful and had amazing technology. They could probably cure the plague easily if they wanted to. But they did not want to. They were ignoring the Cathini completely. Valtai walked to the big window again. Down below on the planet, she could see the plague spreading like a dark wave across the crystal cities. Where it touched, the bright towers became black and cracked. The beautiful gardens of living crystal turned into twisted, broken shapes. "How many are left?" she asked quietly. Nixara checked her numbers. "Less than 2 million across all our worlds, the computers say. They say, we have maybe 1 year before there are none of us left." 1 year. Valtai remembered when there were billions of Cathani spread across dozens of planets. They had been explorers and builders. They created beautiful things and shared their knowledge with anyone who asked. They had never hurt anyone or started any wars. Now they were almost extinct. And no one in the galaxy cared enough to help them. The plague had started small on a mining colony at the edge of their space. At first, only a few workers got sick. Their crystal skin started to change color and crack. Then it spread to their families, then to the whole colony. The Cathani scientists tried everything they could think of, but nothing worked. The sickness jumped from planet to planet faster than they could stop it. It was like their own bodies were working against them. The crystal that gave them life was becoming the thing that killed them. Commander Nixara said softly, "Maybe we should change our message. Maybe instead of asking for help, we should ask them to remember us." Eltia turned to look at her communications officer. Nixara was young, only about 300 years old. Her crystal body still had the bright blue color of youth, though it was getting dimmer as the sadness grew. Inside her, "What do you mean? Our whole history, our art, our music, our science. We could send all of it out into space. Even if no one saves us, maybe someone will remember that we were here, that we existed, that we tried to make beautiful things." It was a sad idea, but maybe it was the only thing left to do. The Cathani had always believed that as long as someone remembered you, you were not really gone. Valtai nodded slowly. "Do it. Send everything. Our whole civilization. Let the galaxy know what they are letting die. Die." As Nixara began to prepare the massive data transmission, Valtai looked out at the dying planet one more time. The crystalline spires that had once reached toward the stars like fingers of light were now crumbling into dust. Maybe no one would answer their call for help. Maybe the galaxy was too scared or too selfish to care about one dying species. But at least the Cathani would not disappear without leaving some trace behind. The message began to broadcast across the stars, carrying with it the entire story of a people who had once filled the darkness with light and who now faced the end. Alone, Dr. Lee Hanna rubbed her red, tired eyes and looked at the strange signals on her computer screen one more time. She had been staring at the same alien message for 3 weeks now, trying to understand what it meant. The small radio telescope lab where she worked in Seoul had picked up something very unusual from deep space. But no one could figure out what the aliens were trying to say. Her friend Dr. Park Jisoo walked into the room carrying 2 cups of hot coffee. The lab was quiet except for the soft humming of computers. It was very late at night, but Hannah was still working. "You were still trying to solve that mystery?" Jisoo asked, putting 1 cup next to Hannah's keyboard. "You have been looking at those numbers for weeks. Maybe you should go home and sleep." Hannah shook her head and pointed at her screen. "No, I think I am starting to understand something important. Look at these number patterns. They're not just random signals from space." Jisoo sat down next to her friend and looked at the screen. All she could see were long rows of numbers and strange symbols that meant nothing to her. "It just looks like noise to me." "That is what I thought at first too," Hannah said, taking a sip of the warm coffee. "But see this part here? These are prime numbers, numbers that can only be divided by 1 and themselves. Every smart species in the universe should know about prime numbers. So they are trying to show us they are intelligent? More than that, they are using math like a bridge to connect with us. Look at this sequence here." Hannah pointed to another part of the message. "These are not just prime numbers. They are using mathematical ideas to express feelings and emotions." Jisoo frowned. "How can math show emotions?" Hannah's voice got excited as she explained. "Think about it like this. If you wanted to tell someone you were sad, but you could not use words, how would you do it? You might use music with slow, low notes. Or you might use dark colors in a painting. The aliens are using math the same way." She showed Jisoo more parts of the message. "This sequence here represents something like fear or worry. This longer pattern seems to be like crying or asking for help. But there is something else too." "What else?" Hannah clicked to open another file on her computer. "They are not just sending us a cry for help. They are sending us everything. Their whole history, their art, their science, their culture. It is like they are giving us a library of their entire civilization." Jisoo looked confused. Why would they do that? If they need help, why not just ask for help? Hannah's voice became very quiet and sad.
Because they are not asking us to save them, Jisoo. They are asking us to remember them.
Know they are going to die, and they want someone in the universe
to know that they existed. The 2 women sat in silence for a moment, thinking about what this meant. Somewhere far away in space, an entire species of intelligent beings was facing extinction, and they were sending their final message to anyone who might listen. "Have other countries received this signal too?" Jisoo asked. "Yes, the big radio telescopes. In America and Europe detected it weeks before we did, but their governments are too busy arguing about what to do. Some want to keep it secret. Others want to study it for years before doing anything. They are treating it like a science project instead of an emergency." Hannah had spent every night for 3 weeks working on the translation, while politicians in Seoul talked about disclosure rules and scientists in other countries held long meetings about procedures. She had been racing against time to understand the message. "I finished the basic translation program this morning," she said, opening another file. "And what I found made me feel sick to my stomach." Showed Jisoo the translated parts of the message. The aliens called themselves the Cathini. They lived on planets made of crystal and silicon instead of rock and water. A terrible disease had started killing them, turning their own crystal bodies into poison that spread to others. They have been sending this message to every advanced civilization in their part of the galaxy, Hannah explained. But no one is answering. No one wants to help because they are afraid of the disease, or because the Cathani are too different from them. Jisoo read the translated message on the screen. It was heartbreaking. The Cathani were not asking for weapons or money or territory. They were simply asking for someone to care that they had lived, loved, created beautiful things, and tried to make the universe a better place. "How long do they have?" Jisoo asked. Hannah looked at the data. Based on the information in their message, maybe less than a year. Their population is dropping fast. So what do we do? our government will take months to decide anything. By then it will be too late. Hannah stared at her computer screen for a long moment. Then she looked at her friend with determination in her eyes. Then maybe we do not wait for the government to decide. Maybe we answer them ourselves. It was a dangerous idea that could get them in serious trouble. But somewhere in the darkness of space, an entire species was dying alone, and Earth might be their last hope for being remembered. Dr. Lee Hanna looked at the huge radio telescope dish and felt her heart beating fast. She and her small team were about to do something that could get them all fired or even put in jail, but they had made up their minds. The dying aliens needed to know that someone had heard their cry for help. "Are you sure about this?" whispered Dr. Park Jisoo as they walked toward the control room. "The Ministry of Science said we are not allowed to send any messages to space without permission." "The ministry has been talking for 2 months," Hannah replied quietly. "While they have meetings and write reports, the Cathani are dying. We cannot wait anymore." It was 3 o'clock in the morning. The deep space communication array was shut down for maintenance, which meant no one would be watching the equipment. This was their only chance to send a message without anyone stopping them. Dr. Cho Min-soo, a young engineer who worked with the radio telescopes, had agreed to help them. His hands shook as he turned on the powerful transmitters. "If they catch us doing this, we will all lose our jobs," he said nervously. "If we do not do this, an entire species will disappear forever," Hannah answered. "Which is worse?" She had spent weeks preparing the message. It was short and simple, written in the same mathematical language the Cathani had used to contact. "Earth," the message said only, "we hear you. You are not alone. We are coming." "Ready to transmit," Min-soo announced. His finger hovering over the send button, Hannah took a deep breath. Once they sent this message, there would be no going back. The government would be angry. Other scientists would criticize them. But somewhere in space, dying aliens would know that Earth cared about them. "Send it," she said. The powerful radio dish turned toward the Cathani star system and sent humanity's first message to another intelligent species. The signal traveled through the darkness of space at the speed of light, carrying with it a promise that Earth intended to keep. 3 months passed. Hannah and her team were investigated by the government and criticized by other scientists. Some people called them heroes, others called them fools. But they waited patiently for any response from the aliens. Then one day, their computers detected a new transmission from the Cathani system. This message was different from the first one. It contained precise location coordinates and detailed information about their biology. Dr. Kim Min-ho was Earth's best expert on biochemistry. When he saw the alien biological data, his face went pale. "This is incredible and terrifying at the same time," he said, staring at his computer screen. General Choi Yoon-ji had been put in charge of Earth's response team. She was a smart military officer who understood that this was not just a science mission, but also a rescue mission. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" she asked. "The Cathani are completely different from any life we know," Min-ho explained. "Are made of carbon and water. They are made of silicon and crystal. It is like the difference between a person and a computer." He showed them pictures of Cathani cells under a microscope. They looked like tiny jewels, perfectly organized in complex patterns. The plague that is killing them is rewriting their genetic code. It is turning their crystal bodies into poison that spreads to other Cathani. "Is there anything we can do to help them?" asked General Choi. Min-ho rubbed his forehead and sighed. "I honestly do not know. Our medicine is designed for carbon-based life like us. Trying to cure them with our drugs would be like trying to fix a broken computer with bandages." Dr. Hannah, who had started this whole mission, stepped forward. "But we have to try. We told them we were coming. We made the first promise that humanity ever made to another intelligent species. We cannot break that promise." "She is right," agreed Dr. Song-yura, a medical researcher who had volunteered for the mission. "Even if we do not know how to cure them, maybe we can learn. Maybe working together, we can find a solution." General Choi looked around the room. At the team of scientists and doctors, "You understand that this would be the most dangerous mission in human history? We would be traveling farther from Earth than anyone has ever gone before, to help aliens we have never met, using medicine that might not work on them.
Ain't the Cathani received our message just as their last city was falling to the plague, Hannah?
Said quietly. The fact that someone answered them gave them hope to keep fighting. If we do not go, that hope will die with them. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood the risks. They might fail, might not be able to save the Cathini. They might not even make it back to Earth alive. But they also understood something else. For the first time in human history, Earth had the chance to prove that they were not alone in the universe, that intelligent species could help each other survive. The decision was made. Earth would send its first interstellar rescue mission to save a dying alien civilization, not because it was easy, because it was right. The spaceship Harmony. It looked strange as it sat on the launch pad in Korea. It had been built quickly using parts from different countries around the world. What used to be a ship designed to carry families to new planets was now packed with medical equipment and 300 brave volunteers. Captain Yoon Dae-ho stood at the ship's bridge and watched Earth getting smaller through the window. He had been a pilot for 20 years, but he had never flown farther than the moon. Now he was taking his crew on a journey that would last 3 years, to a place no human had ever seen before. "All systems are working well," reported his second officer, Lieutenant Kim Sara. "We should reach maximum speed in 2 hours." As they passed the red planet Mars, Captain Yoon called a meeting with the medical team. Dr. Song Yejin was in charge. Of the doctors and scientists who had tried to save the dying aliens, she looked tired already, even though their journey had just begun. "Dr. Song, how are we doing with the treatments?" Captain Yoon asked. Song looked up from her computer, where she had been studying alien biology data. "We have created 17 different ideas for how to cure the Cathani plague. But Captain, we will not know if any of them work until we get there and try them. What happens if none of our treatments work?" Song was quiet for a moment. "Then we will be the only people in the universe who watched an entire intelligent species die. We will be witnesses to the end of their civilization." That was a heavy thought for everyone on the ship. They were traveling across the galaxy to save people they had never met. If they failed, they would have to watch billions of years of Cathani history disappear forever. The journey to the Cathani star system was long and difficult. Space travel was not like in the movies. There were no windows to look out at pretty stars. Most of the time, space was just empty and black. The crew had to live in a metal box for 3 years, breathing recycled air and eating food made from machines, but they did not waste time feeling sorry for themselves. Every day, the medical team worked to understand more about Cathani biology. Dr. Park Min-jae spent months learning the alien language using the cultural data they had received. Dr. Lim Hai-wan studied Cathani history and art, trying to understand how their society worked. "Look at this," Dr. Park said one day, showing pictures of Cathani cities to the other crew members. "Their buildings are alive. They grow them like plants, but they are made of crystal instead of wood." "How is that possible?" asked engineer Choi Junho. "The Cathani do not separate living things from non-living things like we do," Park explained. "To them, crystals can be alive just like animals or plants. Their whole civilization is built on living crystal that grows and changes." Dr. Song spent most of her time in the medical lab, running tests and experiments. She was trying to figure out how Earth medicine might work on silicon-based aliens. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces were missing. "The problem is that we are so different from them," she explained to Captain Yoon during one of their weekly meetings. "We are made of carbon and water, are made of silicon and crystal. Our bodies work completely differently. Do you think there might be a way to help them? Maybe all living things need balance to survive, even if their bodies are different? From ours, the basic idea of health might be the same. We just need to find the right approach." As the months passed, the crew became like a family. They ate meals together, played games, and shared stories about their lives on Earth. Some of them started romantic relationships. Others became close friends. They all knew they might never see Earth again, but they were doing something important together. Dr. Lee Hanna, who had first detected the alien signal, spent her time working on communication systems. She wanted to make sure they could talk to any surviving Cathani when they arrived. I keep thinking about their last message, she told Dr. Kethany. Song one evening, they said our answer gave them hope to keep fighting. What if we arrive and find that hope was not enough? Then at least they will know they were not alone when they died, Song replied. Sometimes that is the most important thing. Okay. After 3 long years, their ship finally reached the Kethany star system. Captain Yoon and his crew looked out at Kethmer Prime, the alien homeworld, expecting to see the beautiful crystal cities they had studied. Instead, they saw darkness. The planet that should have been glowing with living crystal light was almost completely black. Only a few small signals were still broadcasting from the surface. Captain, reported Communications Officer Namjoon, I am receiving automated distress signals. They're directing us to coordinates on the northern continent. When they landed at the location, they found a small facility that was barely working. Inside, fewer than 5,000 Kethany were sleeping in emergency pods. Their bodies kept alive by failing machines. The crew of the Harmony had traveled across the galaxy to save a civilization. Now they had to find out if they were already too late. Dr. Bae Seoyin wiped the sweat from her forehead as she worked in the small medical room they had built inside the alien facility. Her hands shook as she checked another dying Kethany in their sleeping pod. The crystal person inside was barely alive, their body covered in dark cracks that spread like spider webs across their skin. This is not working, she said to her team, her voice full of worry. The medicine we brought from Earth is doing nothing. Their bodies are too different from ours. Around her, other doctors were trying everything they could think of. They had traveled across the galaxy for 3 long years to help these dying people, but now it looked like they might be too late. The sleeping pods that kept the Kethany alive were breaking down one by one. Dr. Lim Jinwoo looked up from his computer screen, his eyes wide with excitement. Wait, everyone needs to see this, he called out. I think I found something important. The other doctors gathered around him as he pointed to the test results on his screen. Look at these numbers. The plague is not just attacking their crystal cells. It is fighting with good bacteria that live inside their bodies. Good bacteria? Asked Dr. Park Mira, confused. But they are made of crystal and silicon, not flesh like us. How can they have bacteria? Why not? Jinwoo said, getting more excited. Even on Earth, we have good bacteria in our bodies that help us stay healthy. Maybe the Kethany have the same thing, but made of different materials. Seo Yoon stared at the data. So you think the plague is like a bad bacteria that is killing the good bacteria? Exactly. Bacteria dies. The Kethany get sick and die too. But what if we could put new bacteria in their bodies? Bacteria from Earth that could fight the plague. It sounded crazy, but they were running out of time and ideas. Dr. Kim Haejin, the oldest doctor on the team, shook her head. That is very dangerous. We do not know what Earth bacteria will do to their bodies. We could kill them by accident. They are already dying, Seo Yoon said quietly. If we do nothing, they will all be dead in a few days. Maybe we should try. The team worked all night to prepare the Earth's bacteria. They changed it in their lab so it would not hurt the Kethany, but would still be strong enough to fight the plague. It was like preparing medicine for a person they had never seen before, using instructions written in a language they barely understood. When the sun rose over the alien world, they were ready to test their idea. Seo Yoon carefully put the Earth bacteria into the body of one very sick Kethany. Then they waited. For hours, nothing happened. The crystal person in the pod looked the same. Dark cracks covering their body, breathing very slowly. Seo Yoon began to think they had failed. Then, something amazing started to happen. The dark cracks on the Kethany's skin began to get lighter. The black poison that had been eating their crystal flesh started to disappear. Their body began to glow with a soft, beautiful light. It is working, whispered Dr. Songyura, barely believing what she was seeing. One by one, they gave the Earth bacteria to all the dying Kethany. It was slow work, and they lost some along the way, but most of them began to get better. Crystal. People who had been sleeping in the pods for months finally started to wake up. Commander Valtai was one of the first to open her eyes. Her crystal body was still weak, but the dark cracks were gone. She looked around the room with confusion until she saw the humans working at their machines. You came, she said through the talking machine that let humans and Kethany understand. each other. Her voice was full of wonder and disbelief.
Oh,
No one in the whole galaxy answered our calls for help, but you came. Captain Yoon Daeho, the leader of the human mission, walked over to her pod. He looked tired after the long journey and the hard work to save her people, but he was smiling. "We heard you," he said simply. "You asked us to remember you when you were gone. We decided to do something better than that." As more Cathani woke up, they could not believe what had happened. The humans had traveled farther than any Earth ship had ever gone before, just to help people they had never met. They had used their own knowledge and resources to save a dying species, expecting nothing in return. The grateful Cathani began to share their amazing crystal technology with the humans who had saved them. They showed them how to grow buildings from living crystal, how to make computers that could think and feel, and how to travel between stars faster than anyone thought possible. But the greatest gift was not the technology. It was the friendship between two very different species. The humans had proven that sometimes the most important thing is not how strong or smart you are, but whether you will help someone when they need it most. The galaxy had been quiet when the Cathani were dying, but Earth had listened, and by saving another species, they had found their own way to the stars.